Welcome to Conversations with Toy, a blogcast tackling life one episode at a time. This is the time to air out life's craziest moments. This space is all about speaking about life's hang-ups and ways in which we can leave better than when we started. Topics are all about ways we can find space to be better in life, love, mental space, and health.
Happy Friday! I hope that you have had the most amazing week. Welcome to Conversations with Toy. I am Toy, your podcaster. I am also a content creator, freelance writer, blogger. I wear lots of hats. I'm also a wife and a mother of 3 beautiful and amazing children. And I'm glad that you are here. Listen, it's not a mistake that you stumbled upon this podcast, and I hope that you leave feeling a little bit lighter, feeling like you're heard, seen, and everything in between. Because this is a mental health podcast, I will always talk about mental health, things that are good, things that are bad, things that are happening in my world, as well as what's happening on these internet streets. So without any further ado, welcome, and let's get into this episode. This is season 12. This is episode number 8. So I'm glad to have you here. Now, let's just say congratulations to everyone who is on this Target boycott. If you're not boycotting Target, that's your personal choice. I would say things like, why are you not? But again, that's not my call. I checked to verify before I came with this information. I know that the last time that I stepped my baby toe into Target was January the 11th. That was a week before Trump went into office. And it reads for me, it checks off for me. And I'm grateful and saving money. I never realized how much money I was spending in Target until I stopped. And the crazy part about it is a lot of the stuff that I already have in the house, we're just now getting to the point where I need to do like a little re-up. However, because I'm not shopping at Target, I don't already shop at Walmart, I am going to stick to the bare necessities. I'm not going to overdo it like I did, which in a way paid off because again, there are still stacks and stacks of things in my home because I do buy them like in bulk, and I don't wait until, you get into the shower, then you discover you don't have, soap, or you get on the toilet and you realize you don't have, toilet paper. Like, that's not how I roll. I was always taught to buy things ahead of time. So I will buy maybe 2 or 3 of things. And when I get down to like maybe the last one, but it hasn't been opened yet. So that means that one is still in the closet and there's one already in use. Then that's when I'll replenish, and I'll replenish with 2. It's been my system. I learned that from my mother. And because of that, I'm at this point where, again, I still have a lot of things that I've already bought before from Target, again, even before January. I'm talking about some things I probably have some like October, November, because again, I just buy, that's just the mentality. And so I'm at the point where I may have to start buying a couple little things, but we're going to keep it basic. January 11th was the last time I stepped my baby toe in the Target. And I ain't going to lie, there were times when I was like, I got to go to Target because, we're not supposed to go to Target, but we're supposed to, shop for the things that we need. And if I can't get certain things that it's become a necessity, I'm going to go to Target. Well, one day I felt like I was going to just like be a little, backslide. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in here. I'm going to figure this out. I go into the Target app, which I had actually deleted. So I pulled it back up. I was like, oh my God, I have this need, telling yourself you have this need. So I pulled the Target app back up and I go into the app. Why? All of my passwords for the most part are pretty saved, right? I know how to get to them. For whatever reason, it was super glitchy. It would not let me in. And I just deleted it. I deleted it. I said, okay, Lord, now you want me to stay steadfast. I was about to backslide, but you protected me, you covered me. And I just believe that because the Bible always talks about if there, there's always a way of escape, and he provided it. So I said, thank you, God. And then I just went shopping at other places. Of course, you have to shop at multiple stores to get the things that you need, but prayerfully, thankfully, thank you, Jesus, I was able to continue on. So again, we're about shy couple more days until I'm about 2 months out. And now there is a fast that's been going on, a Target fast. And a lot of people were like tripping about why I chose Target, or not that I chose Target, but that some of the religious leaders like Pastor Jamal Bryant and a few others that are going with him have chosen Target. But again, he broke it down. You want to go and look at different clips that are online. He broke it down as to why, we spend so much money as a community into Target. We don't receive that back. He talked about George Floyd and how, Target's headquarters were right where George Floyd was killed, and how, it was like, oh, we're going to give all this money, we're going to do all this rollout. And then that rollout was supposed to happen, like the bigger rollout was supposed to happen this year. And then they decided to roll back on their quote unquote DEI. The trend that I've been seeing with companies is that a lot of them are rolling back their DEI. Some of them are saying that they're not rolling back the principles of DEI, but they're rolling back the words, because people are worried about their federal contracts for those who have it, and others are concerned about, their stocks and things of that sort. So it's just a crazy time. It's a crazy time to be alive, but I am Target free, sucker free, and I'm good with that. It was a struggle at first. I honestly thought to myself, my goodness, like, how will I walk all the aisles? What about my self-care? My self-care did not need to be at Target. I'm not saying that I didn't get it there while walking through different aisles and picking up a bunch of stuff I didn't need. Because you know how Target used to do. You used to go in there, you had a list. You had 5 items on the list. By the time you left, you had 20. By the time you left, $400 is spent without even blinking one good eye. So again, the money that we are saving, I'm just super grateful. And being able to allocate that money to other places and or save it has just been amazing. So for those who are holding on strong, you got 40 days now until after Easter, I believe. I don't really think people are going to even really do that much shopping. And here is the thing. There's plenty of people who will still shop, because if they live in areas where only a Target is, and that's the only means for them to get groceries, ain't nobody going to be out here, necessarily starving just to get whatever. But nonetheless, we just grateful because it is making an impact. Target is losing money, and I think they will continue to lose money as much as us come together and continue on this 40-day fast. Because at one point it was like, oh, we're not shopping at Target, but we're going to do this one day where we do our blackout, and now we're like, let's do 40, and we're good with that. This week, personally, I felt like I was on the struggle bus, and I don't know where it started, but I do know that I feel like I've figured it out. I figured that it's burnout. I was trying to just ask myself, like, was it depression? And I was like, I don't feel depressed. I just don't. But I was feeling burnout, and burnout for me comes in so many different ways. Like, I was discovering that it was hard to be like, writer's block was just strong. I was having this strong case of writer's block. I haven't been able to just like really be consistent in writing. And that's not normally me. And I don't want that to be me, because my blog is my baby, and my blog is how I make money. My blog is how I encourage others and help others. I just don't want to have that happen. And I was just like, I never force a blog. I've been doing this for a long time. It's been over 10 years now. And I've been very clear. If there's ever a time where I feel like a blog would be forced, I just won't write it. Currently, I have about 6 blogs that are in draft that are kind of just sitting there. Before that, I think the highest blogs that I had sitting in draft was like 2. So obviously this is a lot more than normal. And what I do is that while they're sitting in draft, I don't really touch them. I give them like a couple of days, even sometimes a couple of weeks. And I looked at some of them, they're even a couple of months, where may have written the title. I might have even written the introductory paragraph, but because I had writer's block, I stopped, saved it, and I'll leave it there until, again, I feel inspired. And that's just like my MO. I never want to just like force the situation to happen. I never want it, because I'll know if it's free flowing, because I'll begin to type and I won't be able to stop, because I have all these ideas coming to my head and different thoughts and the way my mind goes. And again, it's to help someone else. And so there were 6 drafts for me right now, and eventually I'll get to them, hopefully, maybe, or not. I will see how this goes. But I'm super grateful for recognizing that when you're dealing with burnout, instead of telling yourself like, oh my gosh, this has to be something more than it is, I kind of want to just keep it where it is. I don't want to add too many things that doesn't make sense. I don't need to make a long drawn out process. It's just something that happens. And I think everybody has dealt with writer's block in some form. You deal with it when you're in college. You're writing up these big, long 40 something pages. Now, I say 40 something because I actually did have a graduate class. It was religious studies, and it was a graduate level class. I was the only freshman in this class. I've talked about this plenty of times. And so, yeah, in this class, there was literally 40 pages. No lie. It had to be all formatted. It was not a game. And I got through it, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now when it comes to the writing. Content creation is not struggling in the least bit. I have lots of content. Some things is some, recent things that I've done, and some others are just some things that I have sitting in the draft. But whatever the case may be, my page, my content, what keeps me going as far as visually has not stopped. And I don't foresee that happening. I have cut back on going to events because that is my personal choice. But nonetheless, that is what it is. If you live here in Philadelphia, then you are fully aware of the Philadelphia PHS flower show, which is the Philadelphia Flower Show. It's the biggest in the nation, and it is something to see. I don't even know how many vendors that there were. I just know that the second you walk in and to the second you leave, from two sides of two different halls, and a whole nother side with like kids stuff and just other markets. It is absolutely stunning. And this is the thing, even if you're not like a flower person, like I'm a flower person. I love plants. I love flowers. Something about them that just makes them so beautiful. But even if you're saying to yourself, like, okay, Toy, you love flowers. I'm not a flower person. You still would benefit from just walking around in this place. One, it does smell flowery. It smells amazingly good for those who love it. There is a huge, and I do mean a very huge, plant section. There are places for you to buy things, eat, drink, non-alcoholic and alcoholic as well. There are things to do. You can make a flower crown, which is one of the things I love the most. I would say I would love the most. But nonetheless, I feel like it's an event for anybody. And I found that this is an event that you can go by yourself without feeling guilty. You can go hang out with your friend. You can go with a love interest. You can make a group effort. There are so many things between the yoga that they have happening later tonight, to the after party that's happening tomorrow, to the fact that they've had early morning tours. They've had everything. They kind of wanted to reach everybody. And this year they even had a VIP ticket that kind of gave you like a one price. You can go as many times as you want every single day. And this is great for people who want to kind of take their time. I feel like it can be overwhelming. There's probably parts of things that I probably did not notice. Hopefully when I go to the after party tomorrow, I'll be able to recognize a few other things that I didn't see the first time. But it is a good time. And if you need like a good self-care wellness walk, this would be a place to walk, because you got things to see, you got things to do, and it really is just mesmerizing. And so the flower show is a great way to celebrate the beginnings of what spring is going to bring. And if you've been dealing with seasonal depression, I highly, 1000% recommend, because again, just being in this atmosphere with all this freshness, it literally will make you feel so much better. I felt so much lighter. I felt so much joy just from being in the building. So again, if you're here in the Philadelphia or surrounding areas and you want to come do it and you're saying to yourself, is it worth it? I'm telling you that it is. I would suggest you get there as early as possible and plan out your day. Take some breaks, get your hand stamped, maybe leave, go maybe grab some food at the Reading Terminal, which is something that I did when I went the other day. And then head back in and enjoy it some more. It is something to see. And because we're coming down to the close, don't let it pass if you live in the surrounding areas and or Philly, to make sure that you check it out. Because again, it's not just about flowers. It's just about this just unshelving of like this layering of all the seasonal depression, winter blues, all the things that we have dealt with and are coming out from. This is a good spot to let that go. Now, I always want to make sure that we talk about the things that are happening, and it's really not an easy thing to talk about when you're talking about the current events. And unfortunately, that's going to deal with politics. I know back in the day, like you would never talk about, separation between church and state. You never talk about politics. You don't talk about certain, sexual preferences. You just certain things you just don't talk about. But in this day, the way that life is lifing, I feel like we have to have this conversation. And how does talking about politics play with your mental health? First and foremost, there are so many people who have lost jobs, and if they were probationary workers, and then there's been talk of like, oh, this is illegal, but then like, what's the ramification? Do they have jobs when they come back if these jobs have been eliminated? It's so many different things happening. And if you are someone who's lost your job, your mental health may not be at the best place. Matter of fact, I can almost guarantee. And the reason why is we have to make a living in order to survive. And most people are living from paycheck to paycheck. Listen, I've said this before, and I'm going to say this again. We never know what lies ahead of us, and you never know when you could be in the faith line, like my mother would call it, and or one shade away from being can't say homeless, but just unhoused. And so with all of that being said, I can't even begin to tell you the fact that the mental health of many of us are going up and down like a yo-yo. First and foremost, just this week, it was announced that Canada and Mexico would start their tariffs. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we're giving you another 30 days. And mind you, this is the second extension, or maybe even the third, that we've seen or heard about. And it's like, hey, listen, the yo-yoing of, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to put food on the table? Am I going to be able to put gas in my car? God forbid my car breaks down. I can't even get the car parts that may come in just to get it fixed. All of these things play with your head. Because if you think that for any 5 seconds that you cannot support your family, there's nothing good that can come about your mindset. You got to really work hard. And this is why people literally have to work hard and making sure that they don't get caught up in the fact that, again, anything can happen to any of us. And the fact that so many people this week have experienced this, it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. This yo-yo effect, I've said this before, it's almost like dating a narcissist or dating someone who's physically hurting you and causing you harm. They know what they're doing. They say the right thing sometimes just to get you in, or they'll say, hey, this is going to go left just to make sure that they're the savior. Like, I stopped this from happening, even though I am also the cause. And I really do find that's what's happening, because there's no reason for us to have a tariff thing that was supposed to happen last month. And now we're at a position where, oh, it's not going to happen. And now we're getting rumblings of like the Department of Education being let go or no longer. Here's the thing. This is going to have devastating effects, because think about all the children just as an elementary kid, and all of those things that are going to happen, right? So you have all this funding that happens when you have the Department of Education. And so all these schools, whether it's locally, nationally, all the things are going to be affected. Then you have high schoolers. Then you have college students. What happens to the fact that they no longer exist? Who's managing how people are getting in and out of school? Who's managing FAFSA? Who's managing all these things? What about all the kids that have IEPs? These are the kids who would then fall through the cracks because they have an IEP that's supposed to assist them and all the things. But here is the kicker. The kicker is that all of this was in Project 2025. I can't say that enough. Cannot say that enough. Because all these things are being mentioned and all these things that are being done are part of the process. And it's truly unfortunate, because when I think about the people who are going to fall through the cracks of all of this, my heart aches, because what is supposed to happen? What is going to happen? Here is another thing when it comes to your mental health and your wellness. Although we can acknowledge the fact that we're fully aware, we've read Project 2025, so we're aware. We know that we've been seeing this up and down. We're going to do this. We're going to take this away. We're going to give it to you back. You've seen that behavior. You see the notion of it. And I don't get how we don't understand the concept that we have to find ways to ground ourselves. Again, I start my day with prayer and the reading my word, which is my Bible, and making sure that I understand like the things that I'm going to need for the day. Because I always ask God, like, Lord, I need you to help me for the things that I need. I can't help and worry about somebody else if the things that I'm going through, the things that I need is on the struggle bus. Like, I need things to be right. And so how can I prepare for my day when I wake up and try to ground myself so that my emotions are not tied to these things? It's kind of hard to say that they wouldn't be tied, but the fact that we just don't want them full on tied. We want to make sure that we can do whatever it is that we can to get our minds together so that we can show up in our spaces, even with all hell breaking loose. Listen, I was watching something on that Clock app, which is a TikTok. And this guy was like, if it had not been for God, I would have literally lost my mind. I know of times and days where I felt like that was definitely the case. You literally feel like you're having an out of body experience and there's nothing you can do to change the things that are happening to you. And there's not things that are happening for you. And your mind is in one spot, your head is in another, your heart is somewhere else. And all these things are coming back and forth together. And I am telling you, for the sake of your own mental health and your own self-care, we have got to find a way to try to attempt to ground ourselves. Now, does that mean that if you wake up and you read your Bible and you wake up and you pray and then you try to get, quiet and still before God and lay before him and talk to him and just try to figure all these things out, that life isn't going to happen? Because that would be a whole lie. And I wouldn't lie to you because I wouldn't want to be held liable to that lie. But the reality of it is that this is a hard time for a lot of people. And the struggles that people are feeling are going to affect them and their families. They're going to affect how they can show up for their communities, because it's easy for us to say build community, build community. But if the people in the community don't even have enough strength to come and help somebody else because they're trying to make sure their family is good, this is how we tear down communities. This is how it happens. So what are some other things that I plan to do that I'm encouraging you to do? I want you to tap into what makes you feel good. And I'm not telling you to do how we tell people hey, do what you feel, do what feels good, do what feels right. And sometimes what feels good and what feels right to us may not be what we need. That is not what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you to just indulge and just do whatever you want because, at least if hell's gonna lose, you can at least feel good about, 5 seconds. No, I'm not telling you that. What I am telling you is that you have got to learn how to figure out what do I need and what feels good within those needs. For instance, I'm full on aware I need to get to a bookstore. I need to get to a coffee shop. I need to be able to do that. That is going to fill my cup. There's nothing about going to a bookstore. There's nothing about going to a coffee shop that would then be detrimental. But if it's going to renew the thought process that if I'm in a different environment, then I can produce, my content. I can get a deep breather. I can encourage my writing process. Those are things that I need to do that also feel good for me. Listen, if you take drugs, which I don't, but if I took drugs and that temporary feeling felt good, and me telling you do whatever feels good to you, and you're like, yeah, you know what? I've been wanting to do this drug, so I'm going to go ahead and take that because what do I got to lose? The reality of it is that just because it felt good doesn't mean that it is good for you. So consider when I say to you that you should find something that you really enjoy or find the things that you love or things that are going to make you happy. Happiness is a choice. And so when you think about the happiness that you could be feeling, is it because it's based upon joy, which have nothing to do with you being in this happy for a moment? Because sometimes, for me, I find out that I feel like I have joy oftentimes. And I'm thinking about the times when things are not really full on together. But at the end of the day, I have peace in knowing that things are going to work out because of the work that I know that I'm doing, because of the faith that I know that I have. Sometimes that's just pure joy. And so when I go to do something that is joyful, i.e. sit at a bookstore or sit at a coffee shop and do my work and be in a different environment and find ways to drink and sip my coffees for all the things, those are things that, again, they feel good, but they're also good to and for me. They are. Encouraging creativity is a great way to ground yourself because sometimes we're so busy we don't take the time to slow down. So maybe your thing used to be puzzles. So you haven't done puzzles in 1,000 years. And so now you're like, okay, I need to get grounded. I need to find things that work for me. I need to do all these things. And so maybe your thing is puzzle. And I want you to tap into that. What if it is just the fact that you're just literally physically exhausted and you could use some good quality sleep? So there's a difference between getting 8 hours of sleep or getting 8 hours of quality sleep. You want to get quality sleep, the sleep that rejuvenates, that resets, that restores. Those are the types of thoughts that I have when I say to someone, hey, you should find something that you love, something that you really enjoy. Or, hey, you're worthy of taking this break because you need it. Or, hey, I'm going to shut my phone on maybe do not disturb. I'm going to take an hour nap because that is what's necessary for me at that moment, because that's what I need for right now to fill my cup, because the world around me feels like everything is burning, everything is on fire, and I want to make sure that in the midst of this fire, in the midst of the storm, that I can have something to sit back on and rely on.
What am I reading? What am I watching? Let's talk about it.
So, in my journey of reading this week, I have been really loving to read about people's stories and their autobiography and just the things that they believe in, the things that they're going through, their struggles, because I truly, in my own personal, this is just my own personal thoughts, I really do believe that sometimes we learn best when we listen to other people and they're sharing their stories. That's the whole beauty of storytelling. So this week I started and finished Over the Influence by Joanna Jojo Levitt. And if you know JoJo, you know she's a very soulful singer, a Caucasian white woman, and she literally can hang with any and everybody when it comes to vocal gymnastics. This girl can really sing. It's not a game. It's not a joke. And she talks about her story. She talks about all the things that she's been through with her father, her mother, just her many different relationships that she's had. And I don't mean many by even saying anything negative. I'm just saying that was what she's dealt with, and it's all in this book. I really felt like this was a good and a very easy read. I also felt like it was so engaging that it didn't make me stop. Like I had to take breaks because obviously I got to do life. But if I had just that moment of just sit down and read this, I could have read this in a couple hours. I thought this was well written. It's a great book. So if you're looking for something to read and you like JoJo, or if you don't even like her, maybe you just want to know what her deal is. You know, some people be like, I just want to know what she had to say. Well, go ahead and read it. It's called Over the Influence. Go ahead and read it. Because, hey, I'm all for people getting their coin from other people's decisions. And so if you want to give money to JoJo like I did, go ahead and do so. Just go ahead and do so. Just go ahead and click the button. Go ahead and click the button, go to the store, go grab it somewhere, do all the things, because it's a good read. And I felt really, really good about reading that particular book. So that's what I'm reading this week. Unfortunately, we lost a legend this week, Roy Ayers, who is known for his song "Everyone Loves the Sunshine." He passed away this week, and I thought that was really interesting because "Everyone Loves the Sunshine" is one of those songs that I believe is like really encouraging, and I played it maybe 3 times a day, just because it was just like, one, to give honor to whom honor is due, but number two, just because you have certain songs that evoke like a spirit of happiness, like a lightness about everything, and I felt like this was one of those songs that definitely did that. Now, I am not part of the D9, but I will say this: the conversation regarding Caleb Wilson, who was going out to be part of the Omega Psi Phi. And there's so many different variations of the story. So at one point he was pledging and he passed out, and they found him, they got some help, and they called right away. They got him to the hospital, or the paramedics got there, and he was already dead. Different variations of the story. And now there's stories that he was in another field, that he was kicked in the chest, a part of the rituals, and then they changed his clothes, and it's so many things going on. Here's the thing: I'm not a part of the D9, but I do believe that I'm full on aware of family members that are part of the D9, and I am full on aware that there is definitely hazing when it comes to being in these fraternities and these sororities. 100%. Anybody that tells you that it's not, just for the sake of telling you it's not, is wasting your breath and mine. I don't have to be a part of it to know that there's just certain basic things that we all know happens, and that hazing part is definitely one. How bad the hazing part gets, that's not something I could speak on, but we do know that it exists. The problem is that when you have a situation where someone has lost their life, you got to be forthcoming, because they just laid to rest Caleb, and the conversations are still being had. The investigation is still being had, because somebody has to be held accountable. It's not as if he was sleeping in his bed, he went to sleep and he didn't wake up. It's not as if there was some type of natural cause that happened. There was definitely something that took place that caused this young man to pass. And so we're going to allow the courts, the stuff, to do their job. But this is not a shade, but it is a conversation. Like, I get it that at certain points, you know, you had to do certain things to be apart, and I can't say that I'm going against the whole D9's thing, because I'm, you know, and I don't want to say thing, but process. But what I want to say is that there has to be something that needs to happen so that situations like this can be prevented. What can be done? What can we put in the bylaws to happen? What can we put out or do that's actually going to make a substantial hit? Because there's a family member that's mourning the loss of their loved one right now over trying to be in a fraternity, trying to be accepted by a bunch of people who then for a lifetime are going to be able to have your back, only to then die by the very hands of those you tried to get involved with. That just does not sit right with me. So we send love and light to his family, because again, no one should have had to pass just to be a part of any one group. So as we end this podcast for this week, I just want to remind you that life is hard, and I can't even begin to tell you what you'll need to get through it. I can't tell you what you need to get through it for tomorrow. I can't say what you need to get through it for this week or next week. What I can tell you is that we have to do the best we can with what we got. And I am praying for the safety of all. Because as more and more people lose what they have or what they believe they should have, the more and more that violence will increase. If people feel like they can't feed their families, violence is going to increase. So I am praying for everyone's safety. I am praying for everyone's mentality. I am praying for everyone's heart. I'm praying for there to be answers, for there to be ways that, you know, for God to make ways out of no way, for the doors to be open that just were completely closed with cement, and just all of a sudden something pops and something happens. I am praying, because when I think about everything that is happening and what could be happening, what could come down the line, and not even knowing what could come down the line, that's the crazy part. I feel like every day we wake up, we never know what's going to happen. We hear breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, and we never know what that breaking news is going to be. And because we're not aware, we don't have a crystal ball that we can look ahead and see what the future is going to hold. All I know is that that can be the scariest of things. When you feel like you're in a situation where you know a little bit more, when you have a little bit more insight, it can kind of help you. But when you feel like you have none, when you feel like you have no guidance, when you feel like there's just no possible way for you to figure all this out, it could be traumatizing. So again, I'm praying for the safety of all. I'm praying for women. I'm praying for men. I'm praying for children. Because a lot of times we don't remember the fact that our kids are in the midst of the things that we see and what's happening. And so while we're going through our struggles, our kids may not fully understand it, but they can tell something is off. They can tell that something is wrong. And I'm praying for their safety as well. I'm praying for their peace of mind. I am not the type of person that will say, oh, kids don't go through things, or they don't understand things, or they just don't get it, or too young. Yeah, they're too young to have the responsibility of the things that we carry, but they are very, 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 very much able to see. They're able to pick up. Some people and some kids have empathy. They have empaths, and so they can figure it out. They feel it, they sense it, they know something is not right. All I'm telling you is that because of all those things, we have to make sure we guard our homes and keep our homes as positive and as safe. As positive and as safe. I went to church this couple days ago for Lent, and to get ashes, and I am not Catholic, but there was something very renewing about what I'm willing to give up, what I'm willing to sacrifice for this Lent, I won't call it lentil because lentil's a soup, but a Lent season, and figuring that out, and just making sure that I continue to consecrate, to make sure I continue to pray, to make sure I continue to keep my wits about me, to make sure that I'm doing all the things that I possibly can in this world that's not given every answer that we need. Like, we need answers to a lot of questions that we're just not going to get. And so I am letting that hold me up, hold myself accountable to the things that I need to do better in, and the things that I need to, let it go. That's the type of stuff that I'm working on. So again, we talked a little bit about, the changes that are happening in this economy, the things that are happening up and down with this world, and just the politics and the current events. We also talked about a few things that are happening in these internet streets. We talked about the fact that, again, finding ways to ground you, finding ways to keep your mindset about you is important, because we don't know what's ahead. We just don't. And with that being said, talking about Lent, we talked about just the burnout that I personally experienced. And if you don't know what burnout is, pray you never know. Pray that you never know. And the difference between myself, or what I felt was burnout versus what I thought was more depression. And for me, it was more burnout, not necessarily depression. And yes, depressive moods can come with burnout 1000%, but I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge what I felt was best for me. And then in that, trying to find ways to combat that by taking a step back from some events, by making sure that I say no where it needs to be set, by setting boundaries, and also just by deciding to be honest about where I was and not feel like I needed to be performative. That's right there in a nutshell. That's a lot of the things that we need to start doing. Stop being so performative with people, because these folks do not care. And I hope that something, at least one thing in this episode, helped you. I hope at least you felt heard, seen, all of the things. And I hope that you do. Remember, we talked about this, doing one thing for yourself, and how this is very vital. It's not about just doing a free-for-all. I feel like some people were sending messages to me, were like, you're encouraging people to just do whatever they want. If it feels good, it works. No one is suggesting that you just do things because it just works. I'm telling you to find out what you need at every given moment, when you feel like you need to rejuvenate, you need to balance, when you need to ground yourself, and find something that works for you that's also good for you, and then do that. Like I said, going to the bookstore for me, going to a coffee shop for me brings joy, and then that joy will create and spark creativity. And with creativity will help to build more joy, more happiness, more gladness when you want to cry, more joy when you want to be sorrow. And that's the whole point. That's it. That pretty much is it. So again, have yourself an amazing weekend. Have yourself a great week. Make sure you do pour into your cup and find that one activity that you love, that makes you feel good, that is exciting for you, that builds you up in the most of all the things that you need. Have the great week, and I will see you next week. This is Conversations with Toy, and I'm your podcaster, content creator, freelance writer, blogger, mother, wife, friend, daughter, sister, all the titles, auntie, AT, all the things. I wish you to have the most amazing weekend, and that you will find something that you enjoy and pour back into your cup, because you are absolutely deserving and worthy of such. Have a great week, y'all.
Thank you as always for joining me. And I know that even in the deepest or joyful conversations, that there's something we can learn and apply. Until next time, I hope that you are doing better. If not, we will be back to talk some more and handle it. Peace to you and yours. Stay grounded.